Good afternoon, everyone, and to the McCain family, Cindy and your beautiful family here, to the Sedona Forum and the McCain Institute, Evelyn, Rick, to Dr. Crow, to all the sponsors and all of you. I just want to thank you. This is my 14th year. I love this event because I feel I'm among a special tribe of people, a tribe that puts service above politics, above partisanship, and I know that's where I'm at home. I'm honored to be with the newest awardee of the Arena Award, and so and with Carl Skau, who's the Deputy Executive Director of the World Food Program and COO. And for those of you who's been a COO, you know, that's where all the, I compare it to the chef and the sous chef. All right. You got to chop all the vegetables and make sure everything's working. And we thank you for your service, Carl.
Thank you.
I want to start by asking both of them why they said yes. This is a volunteer assignment. They weren't drafted. They were asked to come and serve. And Cindy, last night seeing you with your sons behind you, their tears, your tears, the pride of this family. But I reflected back. You have spent your entire life in service. Your family has. Your family's been in danger countless times. You've gone to the front lines of human suffering throughout your life. Now you see how beautiful Sedona is, for those of you who are here for the first time. Tonight you'll go to the ranch. It is a piece of heaven. Why on earth? And I will say, I used to be head of the World Food Program, and Cindy called me and I said, Cindy, it's the privilege of a lifetime, but you have to know this job literally could kill you. And then she said, I am saying yes. Why did you say yes?
Well, first of all, thank you for doing this, and I'm grateful to have Carl here with me as well. This is his first time being at the forum and he's been to Sedona before, but he's seeing it through different eyes now, yeah. So I'm grateful you're here. I think for any of us who have done, and you both understand this very well, for any of us who have felt the need and felt the humanitarian call, which I did very strongly in my youth and up till now, to me, it was the right thing to do. I mean, I never considered the danger. I never considered the workload. I never considered any of that. What I knew is that we and all of us at WP had to continue helping those who cannot help themselves. And a group was talking about hope today. You've seen it, and you've seen it. To roll into wherever it is, community, a frontline, wherever it may be, and they see the World Food Program trucks coming, that's hope. That's dignity. We're giving dignity back. And those are the kinds of things that made me get into this in the first place. So for me, it was an easy, I did call you for advice. So I did call her. But it was, to me, it was just the right thing to do.
So interesting, I went on ChatGPT last night and asked, since the moment she was sworn in, what are the top 10 global crises that unfolded? Let me just read the list. Number 1, Sudan civil war with acute famine risk, 19.1 million severely affected in food insecurity. Russian invasion of Ukraine, 5 million affected with desperate need for food. Gaza, Israel, Palestine, 1.6 million. Myanmar, 12.4 million, nationwide civil war. This is just the beginning of her term. DRC, Rwanda, M23, Eastern Congo, mineral war, 26.6 million acutely food insecure. The Sahel jihadist state collapse, up to 52.8 million in West Africa, Sahel, needing urgent food assistance. Haiti, gang-driven state collapse, 5.83 million acutely food insecure. I'll stop soon, but Yemen, Red Sea, shipping lane war, 18 million food insecure. Syria, 9.1 million. Iran, Hormuz energy choke point, could push another massive issue. Tell us how it's going at WFP, because this has been a time of severe budget challenge. Carl, you start, but first tell us why you left Sweden. Your beautiful family there. You were ambassador for Sweden to numerous places, and why you chose to take this on, and what it's like to help Cindy as COO.
Yeah, no, it's been a great honor, really. I think, to begin with, it's a privilege to really be able to do something so meaningful. So I think, it wasn't really, something to dwell on. Secondly, WFP is really hyper-operational. It's a team of doers getting stuff done on the front line. And having spent a lot of time in diplomacy, it's not always that, actionable. And so really that operational environment pulled me in. I'd say finally, though, I love adventure. But wow, has it been an adventure, I can tell you. You got to be careful what you wish for. I mean, the list you outlined is just the start of it. And what we have also gone through during these past 3 years is a drop in funding. So historic levels of need, over 300 million people acutely food insecure. Last year, for the first time in decades, 2 famines confirmed. And then a drop in funding, 40%. At WFP last year, we had to let go of some 6,000 people. And on top of that, it's probably never been more complex to be a humanitarian. So the political complexities that you've discussed here, we feel that every day at the checkpoints. The lack of respect for the humanitarian principle, for IHL, and ultimately, it's never been more dangerous. We've lost a lot of colleagues. We have 28 of our colleagues locked up in northern Yemen. And I would say that that's probably the hardest part of our job, is really this concern and constant worry for our colleagues on the front line.
Interesting. I'm going to state a few things that people usually don't understand about WFP, and then talk about how we operationalize things. But WFP was born out of a time when, for the first time in human history, there was more food than we could sell or consume. And so the US was burning excess food, as were many places in Europe, and it's a treaty-based organization. So there's a treaty where countries agree to give excess food to what was a small office of like 25 people to get delivered to the areas most in need. The world also realized in the 60s that we had no speed bump between a crisis and famine, and decided this institution would have the responsibility, if 5,000 or more people were gathered who were hungry, to have to respond. But they didn't fund it. So every operation is voluntarily funded. So as the head, you have to not only go and check out the situation, there's a war here or collapse, you have to raise the money to get the food there. So when you hear of the UN and every nation has a dues, none of that goes to WFP. It's all voluntarily funded. We can talk about system reform another time on why that is, but it has kept WFP's extremely business-like, completely different DNA. It's operational. The truck drivers are the heroes, and has a wall of people killed in action that looks like you're in a military thing. The other thing is they're in the middle of wars and have no protection. You go into Somalia, you go into any of these places, there's not one gun protecting you. And it's a violation. If all you have is to say, I am not here as a participant in the war. So all these factors really lead to, so when I was there, every week, if I didn't raise $150 million a week, children starved. How did you deal with that pressure with, and what appeal are you making in a time when everyone's budgets are very tight?
Well, I think from the first portion of that is you're exactly correct. We have to hand raise everything at WFP. Part of that, though, is me spending quality time concentrating on those who can give and encouraging those who haven't given to give. It takes up as you know, it takes up most of your day to do it. And I spent a lot of time in Washington, a lot of time in the EU, and it's still difficult. As Carl so rightly said, the budgets are, I don't know, less than half. We're down to, at one point we had, $10 billion budget or $10 billion at hand. We've got maybe 4 now or 6. We may get 6 this year. That's a huge drop. And so what does that mean? We laid off 6,000 people, as Carl said. I had to figure out what hungry people I have to take food from the hungry to give it to the starving. That's the decisions I made every day, and I still make them. And compounded with our Yemen hostages, as you know, it's a tough road, and no one is paying attention to Yemen or any of those other countries like that. So it's a daily, as you know, it's daily fundraising, it's daily worry, it's daily trying to figure out how to work with what we've got and still feed. And we're not feeding what we should. We don't have enough money to feed everybody that's hungry right now.
That's urgently
hungry, yeah.
Carl, what are the attitudes in Europe? So the World Food Program was traditionally supported, the US about half, Europe a huge part of that, Canada, Japan. Now there's over 80 nations that give, but still the burden falls very much on that group.
I mean, I think traditionally it's been a lot around solidarity, kind of the moral imperative that no child should go to bed hungry. And I hope that still remains. But I think increasingly, the argument is around self-interest. We heard General Doug yesterday speak about how Al-Qaeda, how ISIS are recruiting among people who have really nowhere else to turn. I think you just said it yourself, that if you're a starving person, you basically have 3 choices. It's you die, you migrate, or you turn to trouble, basically. And I think that's what we're seeing in many of these places. So Europe is not an island. It's surrounded by the Sahel, the Horn of Africa, the Middle East. And that is also what we speak to when we argue for funding. But I think the other piece of it is that it's not, it's a perfect storm, no doubt. But we're doing remarkable things. In Ukraine, every month, we support 700,000 people on the front lines. We are the frontline agency in Ukraine, from Kherson in the south to Kharkiv in the north. In Gaza right now, we feed almost the entire population every month, almost 2 million people. In Sudan, which is the most difficult place you can imagine, we're supporting between 4 to 5 million people every month. So while there is a lot coming at us, I think it's important also to speak to these quite remarkable numbers and achievements that our colleagues are doing. And I think that's maybe the best pitch we can make, that yes, it's tough, but we are making a difference.
Mm-hmm. The running the supply chain to all the places in the world that there's no profit in running a supply chain. I mean, fundamentally, WFP, it's a massive operation of planes, helicopters, cargo planes, buffalo, trains, and
donkeys,
and bases all over the world to do this. I remember once the board was very angry because our drivers in Afghanistan, the cost was high. And I finally got one of the drivers on the phone. They had to drive backwards up mountains to get the food up because the lanes were so narrow. And the world just doesn't always understand the risk the staff's being put at, the challenges, and why sometimes even food gets diverted and stolen. When you have no protection, food is gold out there. And getting it to hungry people is sometimes requires, well, many times the staff risking their lives. Could you talk about some of these challenges that we're facing?
I think from you described it perfectly. That's a daily worry, is making sure that our people are safe, can stay safe, whether or not a micron of a movement would endanger more or not. But more importantly, making sure that they are cared for as well from the the fallout that occurs. So duty of care has become very important to WFP because we have suffered, our teams have suffered on the ground, a great deal of trauma. And so that's part of all this that's in the mix. Those are the things that I worry about and that I stay up at night about, because I can't, the last thing I want to do is put someone in danger. But the truth of it is they're willing to go, and I'm not suggesting that's the reason, but that's what WFP is. We're the best, we're the biggest, we're the only agency that can get these jobs done. And that's why I think a lot of people, AID's been given a very dirty name lately. AID's a dirty word. It really isn't. This is the most important thing that you can do, because food security is national security. Bingo. Bar none. And so unless we pay attention to not just moving the food safely and making sure that we're all safe, but that we can actually do it as a world, we're really in danger with, as Carl so rightly described, with Al-Qaeda and everything, all the other factions around the world.
Let's tease this out a little more. I found a couple of questions when I headed WFP very hard for me to come to reconcile how to answer them. One of them is, why should we, the world, pay for food in a place where a dictator, has lots of money? And I actually confronted one dictator who was building his 7th palace, and we need your food. And I said, let's make a deal. You give up your 7th palace, and we'll bring the food in. Wow, this is, that conversation, but there's that issue. There's the issue of countries needing to take responsibility and not prioritizing these things, and that's true too. How do you deal with these questions that now the world is asking more directly, since there's needs within their own countries?
I think those are good questions, but the reality is that there are a lot of leaders, groups who don't, where we care more about the people than they do, and they couldn't care if the children are dying. And so I think that's our, humanitarian mandate. Our imperative is to focus on those children, on those mothers. There's lots of dilemmas that we are facing, often choosing between only bad options. A government or a regime who's imposing to have military escort as the only way for us to get to a community that is starving. Are we going to accept that? It's against our principles, but at the same time, otherwise we know that thousands of people will die. I think another one, which has been very tricky for Cindy and myself to manage, is, when do you speak out? You certainly for yourself want to speak out against all these bad things, but if that closes down access for our teams, or if that puts our teams at risk, or if we risk also losing $1 billion by doing it, is that the responsible thing to do if we're putting those mothers and children at the center? So yes, I think our daily business is about weighing these dilemmas, choosing between bad options, but trying to always keep our eye on what would that mother want us to do.
Yeah, I completely agree with what Carl said. We have both stood at the entry points of various camps and things where people have walked for a month, mothers have walked for a month just to get to safety and just to get to food. Though when I have good days and bad days with regards to how all this operates and the dilemmas that we're placed in. But when I see things like that, I know we're doing the right thing. I know we need to be there. So we do have to weigh the safety concerns of it. It's never a tough decision for me to make sure they're fed.
And maybe just to illustrate, I was just in Sudan last week, spending 5 days in Darfur. It took 2 days to get to this massive camp that is outside El Fasher, one of the capital in Darfur that you might have heard of, that for a year was completely besieged. And the RSF, which are the old Janjaweeds, had closed it off. They starved the population. They were hammering them by artillery and drones. Now, the city was taken over by these gangsters, and then about 800,000 people managed to flee out to this camp now, Tawila. So over the past 8 months, 700,000 people have put up camp there, and it's an ocean of straw huts, small straw huts. You can drive for an hour and they don't end. And you know, these people have absolutely nothing, absolutely nothing. We manage to show up there every other month. The food maybe lasts them for 15, 20 days, then they just have to cope with nothing. And there is no education, no healthcare, nothing. And I just feel that, you know, certainly the world failed Sudan when we didn't manage to prevent this war. Mm-hmm. We have failed to protect the civilian, prevent these atrocities that have happened. And I think, you know, the least we can do now is to just show up at these camps and help these people who have managed to survive. But that is just to illustrate a little bit what the business looks like on those front lines.
It seems ultimately it's a question of what we accept in the world. And I think this issue of food security, most people aren't aware of how fragile it is. So in our offices, we'll have a backup system for our computers, or we'll have generators to make sure electricity runs. Many nations have less than 3 weeks of food supply. And one hiccup, one drought, one war, one supply chain shutdown. Ukraine was a breadbasket for the world. I mean, that causes massive disruption with vulnerable nations. So there is no food security resilience system that would prevent us from seeing whole nations starve. In 2009, the food crisis where prices doubled, we were on the brink of seeing whole nations starve. They couldn't even purchase food because Cargill and others didn't have supply chain. So this vulnerability, WFP is the only reconciliation system the world has. And $6 billion a year to try to prevent the worst, right, does not seem like too much. Do we need to change the way that resilience system is funded so it's not, just however late Cindy stays up every night making those appeal calls in desperation?
I don't know about changing the system, because I do like the idea that we are voluntary, that our donations are all voluntary, even though it's doubly hard to operate for those of us that do it. So I'm not sure changing the system is the right way, but we need to do a better job. We, the collective we, is what I'm talking about, not just WFP, do a better job of making sure the world understands exactly what's happening. Nobody really talks about food security. I mean, we do. We run around the entire globe talking to anybody who'll listen to us. But I think our government needs to listen up a little better. I think we need to make a better appeal from our end. But also, where is the humanity? I mean, people are literally dying for a lack of substance, and yet I see heads of state, and as you said, doing nothing. They don't care. And I never thought I would say that, because I've always believed in the great humanity of the world, but I've seen, we've both seen it. And so how we do that and change how we operate in terms of the appeal and how we actually present our message, I think is another way to do this, in my opinion.
Well, much of history has been driven, right, by the need for food security.
Yeah.
And the first food aid, I think, was in the Roman Empire when Egypt cut off the food. And so this goes way back in that. The question of holding leaders accountable to the very basic needs of their populations, I finally reconciled it saying, well, there's for the children under that system, can we buy them at least the right to try to escape from it someday in their life? Like, it's bottom line. And to me, more defensible than aid overall in those situations, because we're just giving the right to life for a child that literally has no protection against the system.
I hear you, and one of the programs that we have, in my opinion, I consider it my favorite, but it's our school feeding program. And what we've lost with this cut with funding and everything else, we've lost the ability for soft power. Feeding children in a school and enabling families to collectively be a part of this is life-changing. But when we can't do it, or let's say there's other programs and other things around, that there's really nothing there. The soft power implication of food security and food in general is mind-blowing to see it happen. And I think, I mean, Carl, you may have a different opinion to some degree, but I think this lack of funding and the lack, certainly on part of the U.S., is the damage is large. It's going to be long-lasting as a result of it, in my opinion.
No, I think both of us, our school feeding program is our favorite, really, because we have had the chance to go into, some of these hardest to reach places. And the power of school feeding is not only that it puts a meal a day for kids, it brings kids to school, not least girls. It improves the educational outcome. And the way that we do it also, the procurement is done in the community, so it supports local farmers. It is, it's often women from the community works in those kitchens. So it has all kinds of multiple positive impacts. So if there would, often we talk about prioritizing, focusing. If there's one intervention that makes huge difference, it's these school feeding programs that we are rolling out now to millions across the world. And what's exciting is that governments themselves are picking it up. So big governments, big countries like Brazil, India, Indonesia are now leading the charge. And we're talking about hundreds of millions of kids having that opportunity.
I want to tease out two things. One is the soft power. And one thing that struck me is hunger is something that literally unites humanity. It's a common experience. I just want to ask the audience something. How many of you have known hunger in your life? I mean, it just gives me goosebumps. It's how many of your parents knew hunger in their life? How many of your grandparents knew hunger in their life?
Sure.
Okay. To me, hunger and that intervention, if you ask people in Europe what they remember after World War II, or in Japan when it was a defeated nation, or in China during the tough days of the Mao era, what they remember is the angel that showed up with a cup of food. And just to be clear, WFP, we're not talking about meat and potatoes and vegetables. We're talking about 1 cup of porridge, basic calories. Only recently we added some nutrition to it, but that's it. But enough to sustain life. So how do we awaken? It would seem something that no nation can really deny, right? That if they've overcome those times, it was by some joint effort to do it.
Should I go? I mean, I think, there's a lot of polarization in the world now. That's an understatement, I guess. A lot of countries don't agree with each other. A lot of parties, political parties within countries don't agree with. But I haven't come across anyone, through my travels anywhere, who don't agree with the fact that, children should not go to bed hungry. And so there you have one topic where there is consensus. And I wish, we could manage to rally around there and really bring hunger to an end. But I mean, the big driver right now is conflict. 70% of the 300 million that are acutely food insecure, it's because of conflict. So we talked about Sudan, Gaza, but that is really the main driver. And so obviously to manage to end hunger, we need to be able to start, bring these conflicts to an end, prevent new ones from coming about. I think that is the top priority. The second, of course, is when you can't prevent conflict, is that international humanitarian law, the rules of the game are respected so that we can access people and we can do so safely. The big challenge in Sudan right now is that both sides really, there are a bit more than 2 sides to that conflict, but anyway, are using obstacles to our assistance as a lever, and that's just unacceptable. And so that would be my second ask. But then, of course, the funding piece of this. And like Cindy said, I mean, it's really peanuts, really, if you compare it to, there's a lot of money out there, let's put it that way. So I think those would be kind of my asks, if you will, in rallying behind this consensus to end hunger.
And Cindy, I don't think everyone realizes you can't invade with food. You actually have to ask a leader's permission to come into their territory. Often, those leaders are starving out of population, or sometimes. Certainly, we have cases where, and if you look at Sudan, it's 4 million people trapped in a hostile desert. There aren't roads. When I took this office, 17 of our drivers were kidnapped and missing in action. I was told I had to go negotiate with the local wali to find them and get them released. This need for extreme diplomacy, just for the right to go in and have your people put their lives on the line, is something that I don't think people understand that you two in your posts, it's another huge part of the job.
It's huge. It's a huge part of it. And the advantage, and you use what you've got. And the advantage in my surroundings and the meetings that I've had through the years and things like that is the fact that everybody loved John McCain. I don't care if you're a warlord, gun-toting, whatever, they all loved him.
At least respected him.
Yeah, they respected him. But so that was the ability for me, my point being, the ability for me to be able to common ground things and really get to what we need, the point that we need, et cetera, whatever that is in large part due to John, because his impact around the world, especially in Sudan and South Sudan, was huge. And there's not a world leader that I meet that doesn't have a John McCain story. And so that's very helpful when you're trying to negotiate food and everything else. I'm being frank here, obviously. But
I did hear in one region them say, oh, she's badass. And, it was this kind of joint McCain image of like, we better not insult her, let's hear her out. So yeah, the tough leaders in the world,
they are.
at least didn't close the door.
No, they did not close the door.
Yeah.
No.
And I'm grateful for that. I really
am. And calling on the staff. So let's talk about that, because many people think, oh, UN's a huge bureaucracy. The World Food Program, people have to move every 2 years, 3 years now, 2 years still. They live in incredibly difficult circumstances. I remember my shock calling up one of the great leaders of the World Food, one of the frontline guys, and saying, we want you in headquarters for this big job. And he said, what did I do wrong?
Yeah. That's exactly
I said,
how they
the headquarters is in Rome, your family. He said, no, tell me, be honest, what did I do wrong? It's that kind of staff. Like, if you're bringing me off the front lines, you're punishing me. What are you doing? Talk about sustaining that kind of staff. And at least when we didn't have any post-traumatic stress counseling for them. I mean, most of them had witnessed, or horrible loss and challenges for their family.
Do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start then.
Yeah.
That's, as I mentioned, duty of care.
Yeah.
When Sudan occurred, Sudan was a very difficult exodus for us to get out and try to get and help others get out. We helped the Koreans, we helped the Japanese get out as well. It was a massive movement.
Wasn't that your first 2 weeks on the
Yeah,
job?
2 weeks. I was 2 weeks in. Yeah, it was great. But my point being is that it was very evident to me, because I went to go meet them. They took them to Kenya, and I went to go meet them in Nairobi. And it was very evident that we needed to make sure that our people had access to counseling, to whatever their needs are with regards to this, because they had seen unimaginable trauma, unimaginable stuff. And so duty of care, as I mentioned, has become a large part of what we do for our staff in making sure that they can do okay and that they will survive this mentally more than anything else. But I will also say, as you said, these are tough people. It's really hard. When we pulled them off, you know, they got out of the country and then they were, I want to go back right now, I want to go back. So we can't. You have to wait. And so my last point here is that I've never met a more devoted, except for the U.S. military, I've never met a more devoted, demonstrative, empowered, tough bunch of people that are so devoted to making sure that people are safe and healthy and fed than our WP frontline workers. I've never met a group anymore. I didn't mean you. Go ahead.
No, I think really the uniqueness of WFP is really its people. I don't know what it is, but it pulls great people. I guess, you know, the meaningfulness of the mandate, the clarity, I think, of purpose, you know, bring a great group of people together. I think, you know, the large part of our staff, though, are not the internationals who are moving around. It's our national staff who are living and are recruited in the countries. And, you know, they are really the true heroes because often they live the conflict as well. You know, our colleagues in Gaza have been displaced 15, 20 times with the rest of the population. You spoke about our staff in Sudan. Our Sudanese staff, they all have their families, either as IDPs inside the country or refugees outside the country. So, you know, they are getting up every day. They are, you know, working to make our programs happen, but they are also living these crises, you know, with their families, with their communities. And I think, you know, in a way, they are really the true heroes of our work.
Yeah.
Well, how, you know, like, what a privilege, but also this is the McCain Institute DNA, right? It's that courage, the relentless commitment to believing we can make the world a more humane place, right? Through operationalizing excellence and commitment to principled leadership. Is Julie Borlaug in the room? Okay, Julie's there. If I can tell a family story, so her father's credited with ending famines at a scale that no other human, and won a Nobel Prize for this by discovering how to do this. And her mom said when her dad was passing away, I was so glad he called me his goddaughter, that he finally, in the last moments, called her over, and she thought, finally, because he's always that leader out there saving the world. Finally, we're going to have a moment with my dad. And she said, he called her over and he said, make sure every farmer in the world gets a soil tester, because if they have acid or, you know, acidic soil, we'll have famine. So can you promise me? And she's like, okay, Dad. And hence her mother and Julie and, you know, live this legacy. But this is the kind of DNA we're talking about, right? And why some of us don't feel at home in all places, because when you're wired like that, and I guess, Cindy, that's why you said yes.
Yeah, it is why I said yes. I could not, you know, if I may comment on that, you know, I had a similar experience with John, not about food, but other things. And I think he has always been an inspiration to all of us, but particularly to his family, because by example, not by telling us, but by example, he made us understand the importance of to give back, that we are living in a wonderful world, a wonderful country, and giving back is what we should be doing. We are not teaching our children that, though, to the degree that I would like to see. And I'd like to see future generations as driven as our families and others to do this, because we're going to need this for not just WP, but other organizations. I'd like to somehow instill this spirit of giving back to our younger generation.
Are there any students in the room? Can you raise your hands? Yep. Oh, hi.
You said,
she's talking to you. I just want to say, yes. And Carl? Yeah.
No, but just because Cindy often speaks about other people's legacy, not least her husband, of course. But you know, having this opportunity, we've been working now for over 3 years together. We've been in touch every day, and I don't exaggerate, every day. You know how they say, you know, I speak to my boss more than my wife. Well, here, literally. That has been the case, and it's been, you know, a true privilege, Cindy. And you know, reflecting also, for me, also coming here has been great, because seeing your family, your friends, your home, you know, pieces are coming together. So, you know, speaking to your legacy, I think number one has been, you came in when the organization had grown dramatically over a few years, and it was all over the place, fragmented. Everyone kind of got on with their own business, right and left. What you really brought was this team spirit, and you have insisted on that on a daily basis. We're one team, we need to get together at the leadership and all the way down to our field teams. And I was thinking about that when we had the sports panel, that maybe there's something there, but you really has brought that team spirit. The second is what I heard yesterday referred to as character-driven leadership. I hadn't heard that concept before, but you know, I have, you know, you have tasked me often to do recruitments at the senior leadership level. And of course, experience is important, and what have they done, and do they fit the profile or whatever. But you've always asked character questions. Is it an honest person? Is it a person with integrity? And what you're leaving behind now is a full team of country leader, of a leadership team, that all have those traits. And I can't think of anything more important, Cindy. You will continue to serve in that spirit, which I now realize is the spirit of the Sedona Forum as well.
Wow, beautiful. Yeah. And I want to recognize your Chief of Staff, Megan,
Yes,
over
Megan.
there, who also left her home. Thank you, and your family, because it's also family sacrifice, and thank you, Megan. Cindy, so just to say, the school feeding program is McGovern-Dole.
Yeah.
And it literally, my first experience in Kenya, an 8-year-old girl asked me, is McGovern-Dole going away? Because it was a tight time in Congress. I said, why does an 8-year-old girl in Kenya know about McGovern-Dole? And someone explained that she had no food, had to go out and find food if the cup of food didn't come in school, and she would prostitute herself. And so she learned that the source of her food was someone named McGovern-Dole. And she heard they weren't doing well. That's just crazy, but the fragility and the importance of this cup of food to those children. And this program literally costs pennies for the world. This is, you know, spare tires in operations or something. So I'm glad you two drew that out. So Cindy, your legacy. What do you want? What do you feel, you know, you want to be remembered from your service at WFP, which ends at the end of the month?
It does. I think, you know, I really haven't thought much about it because the day-to-day job is still on me. But I would just like to be remembered for she tried. She tried to do good, and she tried to make the world a better place. I think it's no more complex than that. Just being a part of it.
So you jumped in the arena.
I did.
Literally.
Head first.
And for those next generation McCain leaders, I will just say, when you're asked in life whether to take the risk of jumping in the arena, even as I say that, the pain comes up of needing to confront your own weaknesses, being confronted with your own weaknesses, needing to be braver than you are, needing to feel that, take on the mantle of responsibility to hope when there's not, like all of that. But I don't regret it, and I don't think you regret it, or you regret it, Carl,
Not a moment.
or probably most of the people that have gathered in the McCain tribe. So Thank you to all of you. Thank you, Cindy, for your leadership.
Oh, thank you.
Carl,
Thank you.
Megan, everyone.